So I am doing a tutorial on how I started my locks with coils on a mannequin. So I am using a product. Obviously, you don't have to use this specific product because this is just to, as an example. I'm just using this product as an example. I had to find, any product in this household that doesn't use, that isn't used, So since it's on a mannequin, I could use this. I could use freaking glue for real. So yeah, but it's just as an example because if I use it is a mannequin, so I could have used glue because to make it stick better. Like I'm getting ideas right now. So anyways, like I said, of course I'm not using the original products. You would use whatever product works for you. That product could be any type of locking gel, beeswax, edge wax, any type of locking gel. And I talked about what type of locking gel you can use in my live. I think it was my most recent live. I talked about what gel we could use. So whatever works for you, that's what you can start with. I even started with Eco Gel. At first you can start with any type of products that you originally do like hairstyles with. Like I used to do Eco Gel, I used to do regular gels, I used to do jam, stuff like that. Just go at the beginning because I wasn't even sure if I wanted to do it at first. So I started with those type of gels, and then later on, when I finally made my mind up about, oh yeah, this is what I want to do, then I started trying out other different gels, other locking gels and that of that sort. So, like I said, this is my mannequin head for that the one that holds my wigs. It's a freaking lineup in the back of it because my stepdad had it at first. So he gave it to me because this is the one he was, doing his stuff on, lining up like he was practicing. You know, he's in hair school now, so. But that's what he would use with this mannequin. That's what he would use this mannequin for. I was like, I'm gonna dye the back and stuff, since it's mine now, and I'm gonna just do hair, small hair styles and whatnot. But yeah, I'm gonna dye it so that there's less to shift the focus from that lineup and stuff, and just put it on, so that you can see the hairstyle. So usually on this mannequin, because I'm doing a mannequin and I'm not on hair, usually my own hair would take about, I would say like 30 minutes, if that. But on this mannequin, I had to keep stopping. I had to stop and eat my breakfast. So I ate my breakfast and, I took a break and stuff like that. So I wasn't just fully going in on it. So I did stop in between. It took me about an hour to fully get through her head. The mannequin, of course. So it took me an hour to fully get through her head. So yeah. So we just gonna go ahead and finish this off. I am working on the back right now. Like I said, it's better with the original products. Like I said, use any type of products that work good on your hair if you're just doing coils. But if you want to go to the locks, I would prefer to, what I did was I used the locking gel on my coils, and then I just kept the coils as they were. It dried out eventually, and it started locking eventually. It didn't start locking until I started washing. So I kept the style, didn't do nothing to it. I would apply some mousse every day to kind of freshen it up, some oils to freshen. Well, not really oils. Don't use really any oils at all. Don't use any oils because oils just, it for me it complicated the situation because it's just like you're adding oils because, I mean it's just adding too much oil. So don't add no oils. I feel like you shouldn't add oil until you're familiar with the products that you use. So once you get some type of clue or an idea of what kind of product your hair take, I feel like oils are the last thing you would use. And oils, I would just stick with the locking gel, and then whenever it's time for a wash, you keep the coils in and just refresh your coils. So after I am finished with the hairstyle, I will throw on some wrapping foam, and I would just, just every now and then, like every few days, put in some wrapping foam, tie it up in a scarf or tie down your edges, And it's a very simple hairstyle to work with. Because transitioning into locks is a very tough choice. So just to be sure of this is what you want, this is the starter phase of the locks. I didn't even know what I would look like because I was coming out of weave, and I never had, a short look. I never adapted or had the chance to adapt to a short style, like what my face would look like, how I would even look with short hair because I was so stuck in my weave and my braids. So the more I did this style, the more I adjusted, the more I eventually, transitioned, and I was like, oh yeah, I like this, and it just started to become me, you know. Because honestly, I feel like you grow into the style. A style just isn't, I feel like a style looks good on anybody, especially if it's your own hair. Your own hair, a style looks good on anybody, but it's about you being confident or being courageous enough to take on that style, because that style will eventually, it will grow on you. A lot of people be like, oh yeah, her hair is so cute like that. Oh, she got the face for that. She got the face structure for that. But honestly, just as we adapt to different environments, our hair adapts to us, our style adapts to us. And just how that girl was looking good with that short style, you'll start to see, oh, I look good with this short style, you know? And that's what I learned, because honestly, I used to think that short styles like this, only skinny girls can rock. Skinny girls can get away with, light skinned girls can get away with, But it's not about being light skinned, it's not about being tall, it's not about being skinny. It's about you evolving with your hair, growing with your hair, growing to see you with your hair, because it's just like it's like a structure. It's like molding. It's like you. I don't know. It's hard to explain. Just like men go out there and they get their beards lined up and stuff like that. Your hair is basically the outline of who you can become if you stop doing so much and just allow yourself to be with your hair and allow yourself to accept your hair, and then you'll see who you are, and you'll love who you are, because who you are is originally your hair, you know. It's just that we get so used to adding weaves and stuff to our hair that we eventually you can lose sight of who you are, because instead of accepting who you are, you go back to weave and this and that. But I feel like it's to a certain extent, because you can accept your style and you're like, okay, this is me. I got a visual. I know exactly who I am. So now I'm going to go back to the weave. It don't work like that. It don't work like that. And I can tell you that, like, that's the truth. It don't work like that. You can't just be like, okay, I see you. I see myself. This is who I am, and I'm going to go back. No, when it's just like they say, once you go black, you never go back. Once you go natural, you never want to go back to who you were before. It's not like, oh, I don't need to. It's you don't want to, and that want to becomes a need. It's like you don't want to, but sometimes people, like, it's just like I said, if you're going through a certain phase in your life, and you know this is a whole new transition, and then I feel like the only way you can actually get away with it is if you're stressed, like mothers, parents, we go through a lot, especially, when it comes to stress. That's a whole different ballgame, because we know how damaging we can be, as well as other people, or other situations, or depending on an environment and stuff like that. Like, that stuff can put you in a place where, I'm stressing, and as well as mental illnesses. If you got a lot of mental illnesses and stuff like that, this causes you to, kind of backtrack on the weave, because it's just like, it's too stressing for me right now. I can't take this right now. But I've got to the point where I've been through all that. So it's just like, I feel like that's the only way you would backtrack on like the past and stuff like that, going back to weave. But honestly, you wouldn't want to go back, because going natural is like you're growing with the world now. It's like I'm finally free. I can finally be me, and not only because, oh, I can be who I want to be, this and that and the third. You know, it's not about that. It's more so about, just as you look at a tree and you watch it grow, it's like you're naturally being, just naturally being, you know, and you start to love it, you start to like it, you start to learn it. And the more you learn something, the more exciting it becomes, the more inspired you become, because you're learning. So it becomes a learning process, a growing process, an experimenting process. You want to see something grow. Just like you get a plant and you want to watch it grow. You know, you watch a movie and you want to see what's at the end. That's how it is. You know, that's how my natural journey was, going from braids and weave to dreads. You know, it became scary until it became interesting, you know. But then that's the thing about me, is when it becomes, I get too attached. Just like my plant right now. Like, I got a plant upstairs and everybody be like, you know, this plant is dying. It's my little tree. You know, and it's not about the fact that it's dying. It's not about the fact that I'm waiting to see what's next. It's more so about where it came from. You know, this was a part of my journey of the past and I'm holding it with me. But at the same time, you got to learn that, you got to know that this is actually a life. You know, this is life. And they be like, you need to, you know, it's dead and this and that. But I'm like, it's a tree, you know. Trees don't die, and even if they die, it's still standing. You know, eventually there was this branch that was laying on the ground. There was a big, thick branch laying on the ground, and there was leaves that just started coming from it, and it never been there before. You never know what happens in the future, and I feel like my problem is because I do have a hard time letting go. You know, I do get to the point where I don't care how long something is sitting. If it has life, I believe that something will eventually come from it. I'm not easy to give up on life. Even if it's obvious that the life is gone, I'm still going to treat it as if it's life, because, you know, it came from life. How do you know something is actually gone until it's gone? How do you know? And you'll never know. And that's where I feel like it's hard for me to draw the line at all the time. It's hard for me to draw the line at that point. So that's my little, that's my flaw. That's my natural flaw of my mind. I guess you can call it a flaw. But that's how I am, you know. And the fact that, you know, I went back into braids, I was stressed, you know, because it's like I'm to the point where I will let it go so far. I will continue, like, how far can you go type, you know, vibe. That's what I have, that energy, you know, and sometimes I got to be the one to stop myself when I feel like something ain't going right or my hair is being damaged and I put so much into it. That's where it becomes real. That's where it becomes a lesson, and that's where I feel like I've grown and I matured in that way. Because I'm still, obviously, I don't get why I'm still, you know, that way outside of me. It's probably because I can't, you know, I have to have something to just make me humble myself towards, to become humble towards the situation. So it's kind of like that in a way. But like I said, I was stressed, and I feel like this is not a way to handle the situation, and I know but, and I won't say it's a time saving situation either. You know, this And that's what I'm saying. I could be sitting in these braids with my locks, and my locks is struggling, and my locks ain't doing well, and this weave need to come out of my hair. Like, I could be sitting here like this, but at the same time, it's just like I'm still holding on, because when everything else is confusing outside of me, and the less I'm confused, and I have that clarity, I can manage better. I don't want nothing else. I don't want no more pressure, you know, and I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. And so yeah, this is my little vent while I'm going ahead. I'm doing a tutorial. Overall, the best way to be, like I said, is natural. When you've learned this and you've went through the experience, it's not about how long, it's not about what, it's not about looks, it's not about none of that. It becomes about knowing, patience, and having faith in the process going forward, regardless of the situation. The question before was, what are you holding on to and why? It's not about what you're holding, and sometimes it's not about why, because sometimes why is the reason why you're still wondering. You can be holding on to something, not knowing why, and you're still holding on. Simply because you have nothing better else to do. Literally because you've had enough, or you've come to the point where you're finally satisfied.